If you're listening and watching live, if you're enjoying the podcast, probably nothing has changed. But we're coming at you around 3 p.m. Central Time on the Striker Texas MLS podcast. You'd think I'd be a little more caffeinated than usual. It's not the morning. I'm not wiping sleep out of my eye, but no, I'm still fumbling over my words. It's because of the travel, I think, back from Portland, Oregon, where I saw FC Dallas draw 1-1 with the Timbers. We'll get into that game later in the show. But right now, Victor Rice is with us in Houston, and Chris Bills is with us from the Twin Cities over at All-Star. Chris, what's up, man? How's the vibe in the great, I was going to say the great white north. I guess it's probably not that cold. But.
It's good. I forgot my sunscreen, though, going out to training. I'm feeling a little bit pink. I guess I didn't wear a hat as I've been getting so used to doing in Texas. So anyway, get over the pale skin jokes here, but it's great. It's great. It's I love the Twin Cities, and waking up this morning and having to put on a jacket was feeling I haven't had in quite a while, and getting out to training and seeing all those guys come out. It is kind of real to see just the star after star after star walk through the door and go out to the training pitch and get a chance to talk to Sebastian Drusi a little bit at length. That he's definitely got some good vibes about him, feeling recognized to be here at his first All-Star game.
Yeah, obviously I was gonna go real quick and say, I'm sure John and I like this format, but are you a big fan of MLS versus Liga MX?
I am. I love it. I love it because for me, as and like you said, John, you and John, for anybody who's listening, and I'm more of like your normal MLS fan who doesn't really pay ton of close attention to Liga MX. I mean, I'll watch the big games, I'll watch the finals, but this is a chance for me to kind of like tap in and listening to Chicharito talk, passionately about to be playing for an MLS All-Star team against the league that sort of built him in some ways. He wasn't, and he said he wasn't there for a long time, but it was the kind of the basis for his professional soccer career, and a chance to get on that stage. And he was talking about Mexican soccer in the United States that are primarily Liga MX fans, and what it's going to take for them to start respecting MLS on the same level. And all of those storylines are very rich to me, and I think that it's genuine, right? Like, I don't think and John, you were there with me last year, and I don't I felt like it was a genuine competition. Like, these guys cared about who was going to win this game, and I think that's the most fun part about it, is that these guys do care, and I don't think we've always had that in the All-Star game, and I hope that this format can continue for a long time, because I think it's only going to build.
MLS, of course, the reigning champion.
Yes.
So, I mean, that adds a bit of flavor, maybe. I do think the Liga MX side maybe has a little bit of that motivation based off of that. Chris, I got a newsletter you can check out that'll keep you updated in English on Liga MX. I'll pass it to you after the show. The link for that. It's pretty good writer. So
I'm a subscriber.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The other thing on that, I think that having a chance to talk to Michaela Giannone and some of the other press that are here, and being introduced to some Mexican press, is that they are kind of focused on that idea that MLS won last year, and of course the Seattle Sounders won, Champions League. So like, they're treating this as like, and I think that like the MS guys who have only been in season for 3 weeks, I think it's kind of like, whoa, like, but I think that is a storyline coming in here, that MLS won it last year.
Michele is my boy. I heard him on Extra Time, sort of advancing that narrative. Push back a little bit. I think at Liga MX, this team does want to win, but what are they going to do if they lose? Fire the coach? I mean, I think it'll be fun, but it's like he is putting forward this like, hey, there's so much pressure coming from Mexico, and I think like, yeah, maybe I think maybe more so in that Leagues Cup showcase, where like America fans and Chivas fans are like, how could this happen? We should be dominating these teams. I think those feelings definitely go there. You mentioned getting a chance, Chris, to talk to Sebastian Drusi. I think probably the most in demand Texas-based MLS All-Star this week, although, I'm sure Jesus Ferreira and Paul Ariel are getting lots of interview requests. We're going to have stories of our own up on the Striker this week. I think on all three players, I've got the Dallas guys covered for some chats we were able to have last week, which I think people will really enjoy. Aside of both players, I'm not sure we get to see too often. But tell me more about what Driussi is saying. This experience, I think, is something that the American guys, while Ariel is really excited to be at his first All-Star game, while Ferreira is honored and feeling happy, excited to practice and goof around a little bit in the skills competition. American guys growing up, they understand the concept of this game. Driussi maybe has to learn a little bit more, but you mentioned, hey, he's happy to get accolades. We all think, and the game this weekend against San Jose did nothing to sort of discourage us from the thought that he will get more accolades this season individually in the form of the MLS Most Valuable Player Award. But what is he saying about being at the All-Star game and getting this individual recognition that maybe he was missing last year, arriving late on a team that wasn't performing?
Right. Yeah. I think that this is kind of a new thing for him. He's still kind of learning what this format's going to be. And, I caught him at the early part of this week where, he just got to training. He's out here with some guys that he's played against, but, guys that, he said Carlos Vela is, somebody that he's excited to kind of pick his brain and spend some time around. I did notice that, he got out and they were doing the little warm-up drills, and that was kind of the group he was kind of hanging with, kind of a bit with Carlos Vela and, some of the other guys. And I think that is a cool aspect for him. And the cool thing I think about talking to him and just kind of the vibe that I get from him is that he is kind of taking everything in the moment, right? Like he's not super caught up in the narrative, although he's aware and he certainly wants to win MVP. He certainly wants to take Austin deep into a playoff run. But I think he's just focused on the here and now. And, I think it's great that I talked to him a little bit. He's had a little bit of a groin injury that's kind of popped up over the last week and a half. So it's in the actual game. He said it's feeling so, and obviously, he wants to participate, so he's going to be out and he'll do a little practice for the skills challenge later today. We'll see, what he's got, up his sleeves or, up his shorts, if you were, for the skills challenge tomorrow. So excited to see, Driussi on the main stage. And I thought it was a little surprising that he wasn't more in demand with the media today. We had sort of these little breakout scrums, and I was able to kind of pull him aside for, 5 or 6 minutes, pretty much on my own. I think there was one other reporter from MLS that jumped in, thankfully with a little bit better Spanish, some good questions that got him thinking a little bit. But I've had fun getting to know Driussi, the person, a little bit better, and having him sort of work with me on my Spanish a bit.
Driussi, the player, unbelievable in that 3-3 draw for Austin FC. Just one of the many standout stats. I think everyone knows he scored 2 goals, 10 dribbles. 10 dribbles in this match. That's a number you don't really see very often. If you're tracking that stat, even to attempt that many is rather rare.
I think he might have had three nutmegs. He at least had 2 in this match, but I think he had 3. Yeah, and it was nuts.
It's pretty wild. But also a bit wild, Chris, that Austin once again gets into a game like this. This looked a little bit more like 2021 Austin FC as far as the defending. Nothing against Paul Marie's goal, maybe goal of the season. It was a really, really good goal, but Austin FC can't be happy to let some points go again.
Yeah, and the first goal is kind of fluky, and I think that's the theme, and that's the thing that I think maybe leaves Josh Wolf kind of shaking his head out of this. Is that you see, Julio Cascante put Austin FC up in the 6th minute off a corner kick, and Austin was just on the front foot, looked like they were just going to run over San Jose, and then a fluky chance comes across the box. Kikanovic sort of scuffs a weird cross that he's trying to trap it, and it comes off and sort of loops over Brad Stuver's head, and all of a sudden it seemed like Austin just kind of, it's not abandoned what was bringing them so much success early in the match, which is this positional, very disciplined game, and they let the game become stretched, and they sort of played right into San Jose's hands, and it was really exciting to watch and really made for some really fun back and forth. Essentially came out ahead 3-2 at halftime on some 2 individual Well, the first goal was a great team goal. Great job by Ethan Finley to play the ball back across the box, and then Sebastian Drusi, had Diego Fuguna ducking for cover inside the net, hoping to nail him in the head, because I mean he put a lot of power behind that shot. And then the second goal from Sebastian Drusi is maybe my favorite of all the goals he scored for Austin FC. It was just it was amazing the way that, first of all, when he comes driving through the middle of a defense, and you can see that he knows he's going to be able to get himself in a spot where he's got a chance to score. I think Danny Pereira put it well. He sees Drusi take off through the middle, number 7 take off through the middle, and he's like, "Oh, that's a goal," and that's the belief that this team has in him. But when he got Judson, the San Jose defensive midfielder, made a great sliding tackle to sweep the ball out from under him, and you kind of thought, 99 times out of 100, I think that play would be over, and the ball is sort of squirting out of bounds. Drusi's weight's taking him the wrong way, and he's over Judson. He's had less than a second to process what's happening, and the ball's been swept out from underneath him, and then he banks the ball off the post, and then takes a step over Judson, clears himself, and puts the second touch. It's an incredible piece of skill. He did say, and I was a little disappointed that he didn't try and claim this, but I was trying to play up the fact that he used the post purposefully.
Yeah, I don't think he meant that.
I don't think he meant it, but he said he didn't mean it. But I was hoping that he did.
Well, confirmed.
It was a little bit of futsal.
I understand and appreciate the fact that you've kind of fallen back on Driussi praise, but my question was, it's got to hurt to again leave some points on the table at
Yes.
Q2 Stadium. They concede late. Should Austin FC fans be concerned about home form, about late slippage, or is it just a blip toward something bigger?
I think that there's somewhat cause for concern, and the concern is, yes, letting games slip, but I think it's for me, the concern is that they, for whatever reason, playing at home, they seem to be almost like a little too comfortable. It's like they almost need a little bit of spice. They need a little bit of, ooh, we're going on the road, we're going to take some points, or ooh, Andrew Weeby hates us. That kind of like.
I mean,
that's been their motivation all year.
He's in Minnesota. You could probably call him up and tell him.
You could tell him.
Austin FC needs him to keep hating. Look, like he's probably willing.
To me, that's
everyone has a price.
That's the key to the end of the season is can they live, or can they continue to thrive when I think a lot of the MLS world, as their teams get a list team and treating Austin as, the favorite and the team that they want, at least that's what I hear, as a lot of people are like into the Austin FC story. They want to know what it is that's making this team so good. And Austin, meanwhile, is like, everybody hates us, everybody doubts us. And you can only play that card for, that combined with the fact that they're getting sort of taken out of the game plan when things go wrong. I think they look for those fights. They look for those moments, and they're good at it. And Sebastian Drusi can make some magic. But I think if they can just stick to the plan, I think that's going to be their best course of action, especially control games, and not let these games get back and forth and out of hand. There was a lot of talk also after this one about the subs, and I'm just not too caught up in that either, that being the problem. It was more of the first 74 minutes of not being able to get that fourth goal to get over the top than it was not putting Washington Caruso in over Ronnie. That sentiment, a lot of those things kind of coming in, questioning Josh Wolf, and rightfully so after a match in which his team gets equalized. But there's a lot more beneath the surface than just personnel decisions, I think.
I agree. I would say before we move on from Austin, I think there's still a team that has to be reckoned with. Their turnaround has been incredible, and I actually think Josh Wolf deserves not just a little, but a lot of benefit of the doubt for what he's done with the team this year. That said, the last 2 times at home, you've got a draw against a team that's suffering in the Western Conference and a team that's suffering in the Eastern Conference. That one was a loss. The last 2 road trips are Sporting Kansas City, one of the worst team in the Western Conference, and FC Dallas team that was in a bit of a skid. The road trip before that was Atlanta United. So I think while it's great that Austin is doing as well as they are, and I don't want to take any shine off that necessarily, and I don't think this week is reason for panic, I do think they're still in this area where, for me, as a playoff team, it's still prove it, because it looks like they're headed toward a home playoff spot. That's an accomplishment in itself. But if this is the form that they put on the field at Q2 Stadium in a playoff game against a team that's going to be hungry and have that playoff know-how, like the Portland Timbers, like the Seattle Sounders, both of those are the types of teams that could be coming to Texas for the playoffs. It could get ugly. Let's hope for Austin fans' sake.
That's all they need, John. Clip that out and put it on social media. That's all they need. They're still doubters in this Austin.
Hey man, if I'm, look, there's worse people to be than the new Andrew Wiebe. Let's talk about the Houston Dynamo, the last team that Austin played and won against at home, if I'm not mistaken. The Dynamo, Victor, man, Friday night against
what to expect out of that man, Toss Ricketts, who has been spectacular. I hesitate maybe to call him a super sub, but he has been something to watch for the Caps in 15 to 20 minutes of action.
Yeah, it's been okay, I think. They'd like a little bit more from him.
Tyler able to grab a piece of it, right back in, Pico, and it's tapped. It's Cody Crawford. A stunner early at BC Place.
5-game winning streak.
It's 1-0 for the visitors.
It's a poor goal to concede for the Whitecaps as they come out. They just watch in behind the runner. Ball in from Quintero. Not really headed that far away from Tybert. And it's recycled, knocked right back in from Sam Junqua. And then all it takes from Pico, whether he touches it or not, it stops Cropper from moving, freezes Cropper, and it trickles in over the line.
Captain of the middle for goal. Raposo wide open. Raposo has some space. It's a progress all the one time. Bounding wide of the near side post.
Perfect reason for Sam Junqua.
That's better than what I thought it was going to be, which was that it wasn't.
Plays allowed to go forward. Ferreira. Quintero has to use his left foot instead to Pico. Probably headed wide, and Cropper made sure.
That was a really good save. Again, a nice play here from Quintero.
Houston were in it.
The
thing here now is
got through to Quintero, past Veselinovic, who's caught out. Olfesen with the shooting.
Get that second goal.
Saved by Cropper. A little bit saves it. Cody Cropper has done it in the second half of the second match of the
probably should have gone in. Not enough
to Gold. Gold wide to Gressel. Wide open. Julian Gressel. Stopped by Clark.
Probably
stopped
Houston right on the line.
Point blank.
Did not get
call or no call, but here's the chance.
Gressel point blank and well stood up from Steve Clark. Just puts the pads together. We're rarely beaten. It would be 3 in a row if we weren't able to get something here.
Gressel, Ahmed, into the area, tries a shot, deflected.
Too many people, on the defensive side of the ball. And you see the confusion, right? The way the right side is on both of these goals. They allowed
think of all the stoppages that 2 minutes remaining in this game.
Later in the 92nd, getting stretched defensively.
Just shoots it towards goal. Gressel involved as well.
Lack of communication, lack of a leader in defense.
Look at the face
even after that
of Simon Venture, how excited he is. Good run in.
They could still get out of here.
Initially from Elliott to create the confusion in the Houston defense.
Slowly back into
the crowd's alive. Into the area. Contended for it. Popped out of the box.
Lack of there's lack of communication there. Right? Defended it, but losing team is found a way to lose. Well, good for Vancouver. Good break a drought, 3 points, and they're kind of back in the playoff race.
After it's not dealt with, one of the best rates in Tyrone. They're having that ball bounce high and in the area. But look at this play here from Veselinovic. Very often this year, Cavallini looks to chip the ball back or run towards goal. Let it fly. This is the cannon he's got. And it fools the keeper when he really should have saved. And once again, the Whitecaps Sure defeat.
There's everyone else fighting for a playoff spot. And then to me, the Quakes and those SKC, as their teams you say, they need something to do to make a run. Houston's only 1 point ahead. The last few games haven't been good. Where do you qualify where the Dynamo are at this season after this result?
I think under normal circumstances, yeah, you said the nail's already in the coffin, right? I mean, it's you know, they had a tough loss against Philly, which they were expected to lose, but not by that margin. In this game, you know, you didn't expect the win. You were hoping maybe at least you get away with a point. Houston had never won in Vancouver, but the way they start, the way they were in it until 87 minutes, it should have been 3 points. They should have seen this game out. I think in that sense, it's a bit more of a gut punch than the 6-0 loss to Philly. To answer your question, though, I think what the positive is that the rest of the conference, or at least the teams around them, aren't as good either, right? I mean, they're finding ways to stumble as well. And that's really what keeps Houston alive in this playoff race and keeps them still about 7 points out. So obviously the home games are still a must-win, which they've struggled at home. I mean, it's not an easy task. And taking some results away on the road, I think, positively you can probably say, albeit against, you got to question the opposition, but on the road, they've been able to at least get some kind of performances that give them some confidence. Sure, if they were able to fix these mistakes, absolutely, they can probably get back into it, but there's little signs of that.
3 straight losses now for the Dynamo, only 1 victory in the last 8. If they're going to make the playoffs, they need to make a move and make it now. Victor will have a look forward to the game against Montreal this weekend. Then they head to Colorado, head to Minnesota, and then, they're back at home, but it's against LAFC. It's a kind of a do-or-die stretch here for the Houston Dynamo. FC Dallas, as we move to North Texas, had a
traded for straight into the starting 11 for FC Dallas. And we're underway from Providence Park. The Portland Timbers and FC Dallas. Tonight's match is presented by Keep Oregon Green.
A forgivable one, a lot of rotation.
Nashville, Minnesota. It was Dallas on the road. This could be a dangerous giveaway. Areola streaking forward. Charo coming back as well.
FCD was the better team
hits the
in the
post.
first half and the much better team, I would say, in the second half.
Just another look there. Still enough there for him to be tucking it away. You can see he does scuff it. But certainly for both teams, we saw loose passes
in the second as
not
well.
Quite being as sharp as
and
what
FC
they would
Dallas
normally be.
Areola leaving Pereira. Ivicic palms it away. And Leggett just couldn't get to it. Spent his senior year at Seattle University. Western Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Oh boy, it's a bad swing and a miss. It's Areola alone on Ivicic, and he puts it wide.
Just picking the right time to bring Sebastian Blanco in. He's held him back, he's got the reins on him, but he's letting go right now.
And for Williamson in return from injury as well. Here is Marvin Loria, cutting inside on his right foot. Oh, just wide. Blanco there in the middle as well.
That he'll get on you if your standard isn't up.
Saved by
Marvin Loria stepping up, boss. He does guess the right way, makes a decent save, but he needs one of his teammates to bail him out after that.
Which they do.
Now
and
ready.
Then in the 100th minute, the biggest latest goal in FC Dallas history. I think I saw that stat.
Flicked on and in! Dallas has leveled the match in the 100th minute.
It goes off the head.
Back
into
level.
the net. Nico Esteves runs
1-1. And the faces of devastation on the Portland Timbers.
You just see it coming here. Diego Chara in that near post just trying to get a flick on it, and you got Hedges right behind him. They're just overloading that near post. Diego Chara trying to get the header away. Just skips off the top of his head.
Pamlico is injured, so you can Savile
and goes beyond Eddie Edge.
Right now as they try and diagnose what's going on.
Final whistle from Ted Uncle.
1-1,
the points are split. It was not the most exciting match for about 90 minutes, and then quite an eventful.
As I mentioned, I thought looked pretty darn good as well. They take something from this Pacific Northwest trip, which I think is important and totally fine if you then follow it up with what you should win, a home game against the Earthquakes. Chris, Austin knows it's easier said than done to just beat the Quakes at home. But ultimately, though FC Dallas takes 1 point from this trip, we said last week on the pod, if they take 2, it'd be a success. 1, I think, is just fine, and the way they did it against Portland kind of leaves a clean taste in the mouth for FCD.
Yeah, I think so. And I was really impressed watching back the highlight chances. Dallas created in Portland. They probably should have been up. They probably should have won this match. To be fair to Nico Estevez, and it does feel good to be able to salvage that point in the end. But maybe a little bit frustrating to not get the chances earlier. The other thing that I was surprised about from this game, and maybe we should talk a little bit about Sebastian Lletget, because I think this was a massive signing by FC Dallas. But man, the dude was barely off the plane, and you throw him out there in the mix.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he had a good performance, and but after all this, how slowly Josh Wolf mixes guys in to his rotation, I think it's just another dichotomy between Estevez. Not to get back to being the Austin guy, but I think that it is an interesting thing to talk about.
Well, and especially because those guys are so similar in the way they think about the game. Estevez, and you can read more on the Striker. I talked to Sebastian, I talked to Paul Arriola, I talked to Nico Estevez about his adaptation, about Lletget's adaptation. And Estevez said, essentially, there are two things. One, they needed him. Pamukal picked up a knock. The team isn't too worried about it. They think he's going to be back on the field either for the next game or the one after that. Everything seems to be fine. It's not a panic situation, but they couldn't play him on the turf of Providence Park on Saturday. And with Nsabelang dealing with this stomach thing, and Facundo Quignon not making the trip because of an adductor injury that he suffered, the midfield was thin. And so the fact that they reinforced the midfield, which we didn't necessarily spotlight as a position of need, I think speaks to the fact that while FC Dallas might not be thinking win MLS Cup now, they are thinking contend now and look to the future. Some of the other targets that FC Dallas had this transfer window were players who were only going to be short-term rentals, essentially. I'm thinking about Richie Larea, but a couple other names that popped up were only going to be available on loan through the end of the season or through the end of the European season. And FCD wants to build more long-term. Lletget will be with the team until the end of 2023. And then, of course, I'm not sure if I don't think he's under club control because of how long he's been in the league, but it's definitely an opportunity to woo him, to convince him that Dallas is where he wants to be. And so you have this mutually beneficial move. And, in theory, Pamukal gets healthy, Lletget gets adapted, and you're looking at a midfield of a 6, probably Quignon, plus Lletget, who is willing to do those attacking things that Pamukal can do, but hasn't necessarily shown us this year, hasn't been as aggressive as they needed in the final third. That's fine if he's kind of the intermediate 8 in that 2-8 system, and Lletget is the one that's getting forward more often, making more things happen. Plus, look, Pamukal is still in a lot of ways learning, right? And so I think to have Lletget, a guy who might make the U.S. national team roster, who certainly has plenty of experience in MLS with the national team, he's a great guy to sort of give, those little words, those little thoughts that can spark something in a player like Pamukal, who I think can make a difference. So it wasn't necessarily the move that we said, FC Dallas has to add a two-way midfielder. Before the season, we said that seeking Nsabelang's breakout year, Brandon Cervania with some decent performances and made maybe the 6 and right back still is the positions you're looking at most for FCD as the question marks. I know there's some doubt about center back too, but ultimately that move for Lletget, and doing it with allocation money, which then they get a little bit back in the sort of weird MLS world trading for order and stuff. Basically getting Lletget for not nothing, but general allocation money, $300,000 this year, $300,000 next year. It's a savvy move from a team that is starting to make more and more savvy moves. We've only got a minute here, guys. Oh, actually, this is it. We got to go. I got to get out of here. We'll talk about the best thing we ate this week, last week, and all the other weeks next week on the Striker Texas MLS podcast. We should be back at our time of 10 a.m. on Monday, appointment viewing. If you listen to the podcast, we love you. Maybe drop a 5-star review if you're feeling salty. And we'll talk to you guys next week on the Striker Texas MLS podcast.